One of the superpowers that I don't talk enough about is focus. And what is focus? It seems like so easy that it's natural. We're all focused, but focus is making one thing or a small number of things more important than the rest. And I think we have a challenge today with focus because the opposite of focus is not just being defocused, it's being distracted. And I think distracted is easy to do because humans, as mammals, are reactive creatures. We really didn't become proactive for thousands and thousands of years. So when we think about focus, it's long-term focus. It's the elimination of less important things. Doesn't mean you don't put any attention to them. Doesn't mean you just forget them. It just means you put less focus on them, less attention. And focus is both a superpower and critical as you get into bigger deals. If you're doing small and many transaction deals, focus is less important. You need to focus in, get the deal closed, move on. In large complex sales, you need to focus and go deep, think it through, anticipate, plan, be proactive about spending your time, because you need to really look at time differently. Because as salespeople, we're a lot like entrepreneurs, whether we accept that or not, meaning that we have this unit and space of time to accomplish and close deals to make our goals and our income. And we can't buy more time. We can't stop time. We can't go back in time. We can only learn from it. And I think this point we tend to overlook until it's too late. Our guest today, I think his superpower is really focus and judgment. And judgment's simply prioritizing what is most likely to benefit us, what is most likely to close. And I see the monkey math all the time on LinkedIn about how to get your quota. They reverse engineer it. The problem is I've never seen it work unless it's small transactional deals. If you're going door to door or even door to door, you got to go to the right neighborhood. Skip the houses that don't look like they're a match for you. Sales is a thinking game. It's not a math game. Yes, there's some element of math, and people, get locked into it because they don't want to think. They just want to act. They want to react. They don't want to be proactive. And what ends up happening is you get defocused. When your focus dilutes, your effectiveness dilutes. That has to be true, isn't it? If you're distracted, you're not acting. So just because you're busy doesn't mean you're effective. We're not digging ditches here. Now, if you're digging a ditch, it's number of shovelfuls, how many can you do per minute, how long before you need a break, and the math makes sense. But if you're trying to find water, which is what we're doing, right? We're trying to find money, we're trying to find deals, you have to think. Where's the water or the oil or the gold most likely to be, and how can I get to it the easiest? That's not math. That's thinking. That's judgment. That's focus. That's prioritization. Let's get into this interview. Hey, if you're looking at the class, yes, I've been booked up for all those 15-minute calls. I'm sorry, but the demand outlasts the amount of time I can allocate towards that. But the number one question that everyone's asking, and I do a frequently asked questions both in the show notes and on the YouTube channel. The one on the YouTube channel is basically answers every question that I've gotten repeatedly through those 15-minute calls. I put it up there on YouTube. It's the very first video. When you hit the channel or just search for courses, FAQ, it'll come right up. The number one question is, which course is right for me? Now, here's the answer. Get a pen, write it down. If your pipeline is thin, you're not getting enough meetings, you're not getting into your key accounts, and if you had that superpower of being able to start a business conversation with a stranger, start the conversation, get the meetings, the course for you. Sign up immediately. The other course is winning the complex sale. Look at your pipeline. I got a lot of stuff in here, but it isn't moving. It's going to no deal or no decision, or call it what you want, or the deals end up being small and slow and starting over every time I think it's going to close. That's winning the complex sale. Whichever one of those solves the big problem for you right now, sign up for that one at b2brevenue.com. Here we go, and I'll update everybody on the courses at the very end. Hey, Brooke, welcome to the show. As a way of getting started, give us a little background on yourself.
Absolutely. My name's Brooke Heggie. I've been in sales now for, I guess, 20 years. 12 of those 20 spent in sales management. So I've only been with 2 companies during that time. So I don't want to say I'm well traveled, but I am well just with 2 companies.
2 completely different market spaces too, isn't it?
Definitely. 2 completely different market spaces, one enterprise and one small business.
Yeah. Well, what's the difference in your perspective?
There isn't one. That's the thing. No. It's people. I deal with people. I dealt with people in small business. I deal with people in enterprise. There might be more people to deal with in an enterprise situation, but you're still dealing with people. It's a business. It's all it is.
And are you in leadership now?
I am not.
Okay.
Carrying the bag.
Yeah. What was that like, going up and then back? And
it was a decision I made for myself. I had some life changes and felt it was best that I go back into sales to better suit my family's needs and myself. And it was probably one of the best decisions I made.
You just have more control over your destiny, or?
Yeah, more control. Well, a lot of control, and I'm not relying on other people to do the job that I expect them to do. So it is definitely more control, more freedom, a lot more money. So there's always that. Cool.
So what's your sale like today?
My sale today, it's a long process. I just closed a deal that took me 3 years to close.
Is that all?
just 3 years. And it took the pandemic, a bankruptcy, and going public all at the same time for the company to say yes, but it works. But typical sales cycle for me, 8 to 14 months typically. That 3-year close was unique, but a lot of factors went into it.
Well, what's the dollar range on the deals?
Typical deal, we can go from the thousands of dollars to the millions of dollars. That deal specifically was 400 year over year, and it was a 3-year deal, so just over 1.2 million.
Wow. And what type of number? Is that like your whole number or half your number? Or?
No, that's the whole number.
There you go. Take the rest of the year off.
It was more than my whole number for new business. So yeah, it was good.
But the complexity between a small business and an enterprise is very different, isn't it?
It is. Small businesses are a little bit more agile. They can make quicker decisions based on need. Sometimes my enterprise accounts can make a decision real fast based on a specific need or a project that they might have coming up where they have a specific need. And then sometimes it's a larger decision to make a jump to a different software or even with what I'm doing now with learning management systems. This particular company that I sold, that they didn't have one. So they had a specific need, but it took them a long time to decide that they really wanted it. But it just really depends on there's so many factors in an enterprise situation, but at the end of the day, I've always felt, even from my previous experience, it just matters with the people. I'm selling me, they're buying me first.
Yeah. But there's a lot of you out there, right?
Yeah, sure. But not like me.
No? How are you different?
I mean, a lot of different ways. I mean, from what my customers tell me, and even from the past, it's I'm accessible at all times. I know there are others that are, but it's a matter of how you treat the customer.
Yeah.
I'm probably the most sales guy you'll ever meet. It just I let the product and the process speak for itself.
And what is that, though?
Just I don't want to say I'm a no pressure salesperson, but I'm on top of the business. But it's a matter of making the individual or the organization feel comfortable about the decisions that they're making, whether it's providing research, resources, referrals of other businesses that I've worked with that are comfortable to do so. All of that goes a long way.
Yeah. And how do you demonstrate that?
By showing up.
Yeah. But everyone shows up.
Yeah, everybody shows up, but you demonstrate it by proving your point and saying what you mean. Don't miss meetings. I have seen many of my competitors that schedule meetings, then don't show up for the meetings. They don't have the right resources available. There's a lot of preparation. There's a lot of things that going into having the proper meeting and being prepared and being that resource to an organization is what they look for. They don't want you to show up and, oh, let me start looking at my notes. What did we talk about last time? It's ready to go when the bell rings.
It's crazy. I don't know if you've ever seen that quote about, or meme, the 7 things that require no talent.
Yes, absolutely.
And what was crazy is I got pushback on some of them. I was like, well, if you think these things require talent, sales is not for you.
No, it's not. No.
And it is a lot of those basics that, you'd be shocked. People can't manage their calendar.
It's shocking. I mean, from my days in management, you look for people to do the job, but sometimes you don't know what you're getting until you get them.
Right, because interview, they show up on time.
Well, sometimes.
Well, that's it. I replied back. Someone would say, well, not everyone has that strength of showing up on time. I go, well, if you won the lottery and the lottery is awarded at noon, and do you think you'd have any problem getting out of bed?
Yeah.
Not at all.
No, not at all. Not at all. But there's a lottery ticket out there every day for us.
There is.
There is. You just got to get it.
And, the being prepared, it's like people, wow, I'll be prepared after I find out weren't prepared.
Right. Yeah. You don't know what you don't know. I had a former coach that used to say even our meetings before practice, if you're on time, if you're early, if you're on time, you're late. Yeah. And it's just carried through for me with everything that I do. Preparation is hugely important to this job, to sales, to anything.
And, I interview what supposedly are the best salespeople. And I just had a guy cancel 15-minute notice, say, oh, hey, I have to fly to California. And it's like, well, why'd you pick this time 2 weeks ago? And you just learned that you're flying to California?
Yeah, exactly.
And you're like, okay. How about tomorrow morning? It's like, go figure. I booked myself a little bit ahead more than one day.
Right. Yeah. We all have schedules. I mean, absolutely. Yeah. It's crazy.
And people are like, well, why are you so strict? It's like, no, I'm not strict. I allow you to pick the time.
Right.
There's a reminder, 2 reminders, 2 days in advance.
Hey.
But it requires it not until 15 minutes where the calendar invite hits you and go, oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And these things are not hard.
No, they're
This is
not
not the
hard.
hard part of sales.
No, that's the easy part of sales. And those are the things that I've found over the years that many salespeople just don't do. They're not good at it.
Yeah. And do you like have a checklist, a pre-call checklist?
I wouldn't say a checklist. I'm, I guess a lot of it's in my head. I've been doing this for a while now that, you know, I review my meetings before I have them, whether it's internal resources that I'm going to need available or even an external resource. You know, there might be a pre-meeting, a meeting before the meeting. And that's important to just to make sure everybody on the inside or whoever I may be bringing to the meeting is prepared. That's my own preparation, is to prepare everyone else before the meeting, and even a prep call with the customer before the meeting to make sure it's a successful a call. You know, that the deal that I just closed, there were many meetings with my internal coach there where it was discussed, this is how we want it to look, or this is how you need it to look to ensure that we have a successful a program or launch or whatever it might be. Many of those calls, so pre-meetings before the meeting. So yeah. Just preparation is important.
And how can you tell when you have a good match?
Well, it's a personality thing, I think. You have a good match with someone if they're willing to talk to you or they take your call. Yeah. That's the other thing. If somebody that you think you're so close to as a prospect and they don't answer your call or respond to your emails, guess what? You're not who you think you are to them. So that's also a huge thing is a personality match, making sure you're showing up with valuable information or information that's pertinent and important to them, because the minutia of sales is they want what they want in that moment.
Right. And they either want to talk to you because they like to or have to.
Correct. That's what I think. Yeah, absolutely.
What else is there, right?
Yeah, what else? I mean, they're not going to talk to me if they don't like me. I mean, I've seen it happen where there's a personality conflict. Might have been my best sales rep. Prospect will call me, hey, I can't work with this guy. I can't work with this person. And, you know, in the back of my mind, I'm like, geez, you know, he's my best guy. Well, there's something there that's not clicking and it's not pushing the ball forward. So, okay, we can take care of that.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people forget that. Mm-hmm. Because it's not their job to update you and they know that when they see your email or your voicemail, pretty much what you want. Mm-hmm. So if you're not enjoyable to talk to, whether it's bringing business value or personal value, whatever that is to them.
Correct.
And, you know, a lot of people today, you know, poo-poo rapport and small talk. Well, it's only small talk if no one's interested. If someone's interested, it's interesting.
Correct.
You know,
absolutely. If
they want to talk about the Queen's Gambit,
I would. Great show. Great show. Yeah, it's. I used to tell my reps, you know, at the end of the day, the conversation is from one human to another, right? It's just forget everything else. Forget they know why you're there. they know why you're there. You don't need to discuss that. Have a real conversation with another person. Ask them how their day is going. Ask them, you know, what's new, what's going on, and it'll eventually evolve into a business conversation. But don't just, you know, it's like walking through the door with a baseball bat and hitting them in the head. You can't. It doesn't.
No one wants it.
Nobody wants that. They don't want that.
Yeah, they see the follow-up email, voicemail, and they know it's like they either don't have anything or they don't know themselves.
Correct.
And how about as far as like the guiding the process, because that's one of the key distinctions between SMB and enterprise, the number of people involved, a lot of things that you don't see in SMB as far as people who can say they can't say yes, but they can say no. Standards, integration, security, legal.
Yeah, it's again, it's all about the preparation. I mean, I keep harping on it, but it's knowing where to go. I think that comes with tenure. You know, when I first started with this current organization I'm with, I didn't know where to go. I didn't know who to ask. It was a big shift for me. 17 years at one organization, I knew within a second who to pick up the phone and call or where to get what I needed. It's taken me some time. I feel like I'm there now, but it's wildly important to success to be able to know where to get those answers, and also to know when to say you don't know the answer. One of the biggest lessons I learned very early on is to say I don't know, or I'll find out. That's I would want anyone to tell me that if I'm on the other end.
And what stages have you seen either yourself or other reps go through?
Wow, there's so many stages of drinking from the water hose, to frustration, to the light bulb going off, to withdrawing completely from the process, to embracing the process, understanding the process, and a lot of that has to do with personal will. Are you willing to do what it takes to go through the process? Because for me to go from where I was to where I am now, there was some concern that I wouldn't, hey, he's a small biz guy, may not know the process. I knew the process. It's it's the same process. It's just longer with more. Okay. So, but knowing that and understanding it, I wasn't afraid of it, not at all. It's just, again, it's at the end of the day, I'm just talking to other people.
But people typically that first year, they tend to talk too much. They fill the voids instead of letting the void exist.
Yeah.
That the void is good.
Yeah, the old show up and throw up scenario. So, my advice to any new sales rep is try not to do that as best as possible. Learn to sit back and listen. You'll learn so much more by listening and asking questions, not being afraid to ask questions, but not in today's world. Even for me, 20 years. So I started in 2000. From then to now, the technology that's out there is incredible. So you can almost bet in any sales cycle, the person you're speaking to has researched you, has Googled they know your product maybe better than you do. They have done their research. They've had a team looking into it. So you don't need to go through this product, scenario. It's opposite of that. They already know. They're looking for, why am I going to buy you and your product? What are you going to do for me? Or how are you going to support this process? What does that look like? Because you can't really get that stuff from somebody's website. So
especially, because you've been in two markets that are pretty crowded.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. Because, on the payroll side, you have everything from QuickBooks up, right?
Mm-hmm. Everything.
And LMS, you've got, I have an LMS. It's like, it's all over the place.
Yeah. There's tons of them out there.
Right. So you gotta find, what do they really need? Why do they really need it? And do you have it?
Right.
And
correct.
how you can lock out your competition.
Correct. Yeah. The competition is fierce out there. And there's, it gets a little bit smaller at the enterprise level, but still they're
right. But there's ones that are vertical. There's ones that are based off of stacks. There's ones.
Correct. Yeah.
And they're probably lost too.
Yes. Yeah. There's lots of moving parts within this industry right now. I feel like it changes every day.
Oh.
Every day it changes, and it's something different.
So. And who looks for this product within the company?
Oh, wow. So many different people. That's kind of the interesting thing of this job, because sometimes it's coming from an HR department, sometimes it's coming from maybe a sales enablement type department. It comes from some organizations have their own learning and development team. So you've got those teams, you have HR people, you have possibly a C-level executive who may be new to the organization that maybe loved wherever they came from, and they're pushing down. So it could start at the C level, it could start at the HR level. It goes. It's the interesting thing is it goes both ways. So there's the target for me. It's from the payroll world, you're looking for a business owner or the payroll processor, right? There's two people really involved in that decision. Here,
it's all over the place.
I mean, it's a eye chart of who we can call on or talk to or try.
Yeah. And how do you weave your way through that between the people who have power or the people who just have influence or interest or curiosity in the space?
Conversations. It many conversations that go into the process. It's finding out information. Maybe not even trying to. There's no pitch. It's digging for intel, right? Yeah. Once you get the intel, it moves to a targeted conversation with somebody else, and then that can just move down the line. Many different conversations are going to be had before you get to the right team or people or executive that before they make that decision.
And do you have a specific questioning sequence or questions that you find that really get to the heart of the matter fast?
Not a set. There's no real set question. It's more along the lines of, okay, who is this person? What's their title? What kind of intelligence do I have before the call? Because a lot of research is going to go into it. So knowing who the competitor is, if there is one involved, if there isn't, is there a consideration for some new software? Do they have budget? Maybe I'm even talking to somebody in procurement. I found procurement people know a lot more about this stuff than the people in the actual departments. They have information that I found vitally important to have other conversations that go up. So a set question, there's no magic bullet for the question. It's
right. Because I found starting where they are.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure you've gotten pulled in to be column fodder.
Oh yeah.
And which can be an enormous waste of time.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
How, have you found an acid test to determine whether you're A or B?
Yeah, you always know when somebody's kicking the tire, right? And those people, the lot lurkers, I call them, you know how serious they are if they're responsive, right? If they're dragging on their response times with emails or phone calls, maybe it's not a serious thing. Maybe it's not their roadmap as soon as you think it is. But that's my job as a salesperson. I need to know where my business is. So if you're just kicking the tires, I'll know right away just from the conversation about how serious they are, how things progress. As they request meetings and we put meetings out there, if they're pushed or the can gets kicked down the road, I'll defer back to this sale I just made. I knew that I never forecasted it. Nobody even really knew about it until this year when I knew now's the time, but a lot of work went into it. But I knew where that stood at every moment.
And what gave you the sense that it was real versus just potential?
Specific conversations between myself and my internal coach, champion, whatever you want to call him, just how serious it was because she had come from an organization that had it, and this was such a large organization without any type of learning management system that was just impossible for them to continue with business without having the ability to reach their employees.
And did you find that tenure as a leader to help you become a better seller?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yes.
Because you got to see what other people would, because you get to see deals without the emotion.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. It's, I don't want to say I've become rather emotionless in this job, but a lot, I guess as the years have gone on, I've become a much calmer person. When I was younger in sales, you know, you're living and dying by the sale, and it's
right.
Worst day of your life when you don't make the sale. But you know what? You get up the next day, you ring the bell, and off you go. Now I get it.
You get that confirmation bias, the happy ears.
Yeah.
You're emotionally attached to it, so you tend not to see the dangerous things. But as a manager, you're like, okay, have you talked to this person? Where do they fit in? How long have they been there? Do they seem like they have juice?
Yeah. Yeah. Where does it all stand?
Yeah.
And I felt so comfortable in that one, and many of the other sales that I've made, there was a comfort level within myself and within the customer that we just knew where things stood.
And what do you see as your superpower as a sales rep, if you have one?
I don't think I have a superpower, but probably something I learned when I was, a sales manager was just reading people and being able to, again, the person-to-person conversation, you just know where somebody stands. You know if they're a good person or a bad person, or you know if they're serious or they're not. How serious are they taking your conversation? Eye contact, engagement, all those things. Eye contact now is a little difficult without person-to-person meetings, but being able to read somebody is one of the best things that I have been able to do, is just to know how somebody is presenting themselves to me.
Kind of what I call the bullshit meter.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Yeah, absolutely. For sure. Yeah. Yeah. I have a good one.
Yeah. Because, and I think that was something I developed pretty fast too, because you're like, they seem too anxious or too easy and we just got there. And
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And when they tell you they're the final decision maker, and
I've been burned by that one many times before.
And have you been able to coach other people on how to develop that meter?
Yeah, it was, I go back to my management days. It was certainly something I tried to help my reps with, was to just understand the person. As a sales manager, listening to some of your podcasts, how's the forecast and, all those things, but you've got to decipher what is bullshit and what's real, right? So if my job was to teach my reps to think like me, is this real or not? And if it's not, fine, let's figure that out, but let's move forward, right? And I guess if you ever talk to any of my former reps, they would tell you the same thing. I taught them how to figure out what's real and what's not, because it only helping them helped me.
Because too often the forecast turns into, what does the manager want to see?
Right.
Versus what's real.
What's real, yes. And I was more of the what's real guy. I wasn't,
because and then managers yell at the reps because the forecast isn't accurate, but the manager's responsibility for the accuracy.
Correct.
What you roll up is your forecast, not theirs.
I owned it. It wasn't right. I owned it. So that's where I took great responsibility into it.
Oh, great. Hey, I appreciate your time today. Where can people go to connect and follow you?
They can find me on LinkedIn. That's the best place to find me.
Excellent. Think about what your superpower is, or what you're best at. And a lot of people want to take your weakest point and make it better. The challenge there is psychology, meaning that to get grit, to get resilience, you have to start with some level of skill and ability. because you'll just get burnt out and frustrated, and you can't get into that flow state, that optimal productive zone that you get into. You have to have some amount of foundation. That's why people quit playing a musical instrument the first month, because, and why they just like pick it up and just play with it randomly. Because until they get some level of minimal skill, doesn't have to be much, they can't, the resistance will always outweigh them. Our mammal brain will always take over. And I think this is why there's such a large burnout that first year in sales, because managers put people immediately on the phones, kind of the hardest thing, instead of maybe putting them on inbound for 6 months to a year. Get them used to talking with people, or put them in support, or doing something where they can have some margin of success and then build it up. Because if the challenge is too much, we're naturally going to recede and give up. Or do the opposite of focus, get distracted, which is even worse, because we get the illusion of busy, of accomplishing, of making progress without any result. And it eventually will catch up with us. So think through your superpower. I think that the two key ones in sales, especially if you don't get inbound, is how do you start a conversation with a stranger? How do you build it up into a business conversation? You can make an email very personalized, very relevant, and everyone's thinking that's the answer. That's the answer if you want to do a commercial. It is. A better commercial will get you better results. The only problem is you still have to do, it's like 1%, 3%. That means you're going to get a response every 2 days. That's not the way I like to roll. I like to engage and talk with people, not spam people and not put commercials out there. Engage with other people. No one teaches us this. It's become a lost art. Think about it. We go to school, and it's productive in school as well. We go in there, we got to sit in a row, we got to be reactive, told what to do. But how do you excel at school? By doing what you're told? It's being proactive about doing what others aren't. The secret to most of life is being able to do what others aren't. I don't mean more. I mean something. Being proactive. We're naturally reactive. If you become counterintuitive, you will start to see the breakthroughs in sales. Because what do we naturally do in sales? We talk about us. Counterintuitive is to talk about them. We buy into the activity. We act like the little student in the row, and we follow the monkey math, and we're insanely busy, and we burn out because we're doing dumb things faster. How about this? How about do smarter things? When I was a kid, we had building forts. And then one summer we did this crazy thing. Let's do an underground fort. At the time, Hogan's Heroes was a TV show. Have you ever tried to dig a hole in New England? It's a very rocky terrain. You get about 6 inches down, and you tend to hit a lot of rocks. So digging a tunnel, and you just think, how hard can this be? It's insanely hard. You hit rock after rock, and then you hit a huge rock that you can't possibly get out of. It's a very rocky terrain. But the idea as kids was all you had to do was work harder. No, stick to tree forts in New England. Underground forts, not so good. But it was, as a kid, you were like intrigued because no one could find you. Don't be doing dumb things. Think smart. Think about who's most likely to buy. think about developing that skill. The number one challenge we have in Start the Conversation, Get the Meeting is diffusion. People are going after way too many accounts. Look at the accounts that closed and the ones that didn't. Find the patterns. Sometimes we're too close to it. Sometimes we need to talk it through with somebody else, hear how other people are doing it. And that's what the courses have turned into. It's turned, started with like online content, well-structured, step by step. And then it moved into office hours, community meetup every other Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern, online on Zoom, all recorded, put back in the course. But the community has taken off, where people are helping each other get jobs, helping each other in their niche industries and non-competitive situations. But being able to vent what you're facing and hear how other people are doing it, and the amount of creativity that's coming out of it, taking core principles, how to become aware to other people and developing it and leveraging technology today. Because if you look at becoming better, most of it, 95% of it's kind of linear. It's circadian. Every day you get up, you do a little bit more, you become a little bit better, that tiny little percentage. And there's nothing wrong with it. That's the natural way to become better. But if you're able to have an epiphany, a moment of enlightenment, a discovery of a new way, and about 2.5, 3 years ago, I had that with my business. Usually has to do with a new technology or a new approach or a new mindset, and you're able to scale non-linearly, exponentially. So you go from, being able to go from 10, not to 11, but 10 to 100. And we all want that. That's that viral element, that exponential growth element. It's elusive. It doesn't translate from one person to another. That's why we all get on YouTube and we see the one person who's making $5 million making cat videos, and we think we can do it. But it's not like lottery. It's not like 1 in 100 million. It's about finding your market, applying a new approach, and scaling it. If you can find that exponential growth opportunity, it's so exciting. And I'm not saying you can, because it took me years and years of trial and error and different approaches, but yet a intersection of social, video, and comedy came together and gave me an exponential growth. Now, your market's different. It's not transferable from one to another. But the ingredients are, meaning how can I leverage either new technology, people, networks, approaches to become more than linear. The problem with linear is it's a little boring. It's better. It's a lot better than just staying still. And I did an interesting experiment. I took those year-at-a-glance calendars that I've been talking about forever. I've been doing it for 4 years now. So now I have 4 of them. I put them on the floor and I lined them up. And I looked for patterns. What does my year typically look like? When's the best time to work hard and really crush it and produce lots of stuff and content and courses and connect with the audience? And what times are quiet? What times are less productive? And I found those patterns. And where did I get burnt out? And where did I get excited? And what caused a row of bad grades, a bad week or a bad month? Or what caused a great month? And I think when you can look at time, and a large portion of time, because we think a year is a lot. And at first, in January, it seems like a lot. In December, it seems like, woo, that went by fast. But the thing is, every year forward is going to go by faster. Just ask anybody who's older than you. It doesn't slow down. It speeds up just because the relative proportion. Because when you're 20, 1 year is 5% of your life. But when you're 80, it's a lot less. Don't make me do the math. And it feels that way, and it acts that way. So we have to work smarter because we can't slow time down. It's speeding up. What we can do is focus on the things that are most important to us, the things that are going to get us the things that we want out of life. And when you hear that, you probably think, oh, it's just about money. No, whatever it is you want. You're listening to this podcast. You're in sales because you want something different. There's a whole lot easier ways of scraping by. But you're in sales either because you're money motivated or doing the other things weren't as appealing, and you want to be successful at it. Because guess what happens when you have success? You get into that flow state. When you don't have success, it has to be grit and resilience, and that wears out really quick. Go to b2brevenue.com. Remember, check out the courses. Watch the frequently asked questions video on YouTube. It's only about 10 minutes long because I really focus in on answering all the major questions that people have. I'll try and open up more 15-minute slots, but we're kind of slammed right now. Check that out. This is the time to take action, to bring your game up, not just linearly, but finding that exponential epiphanies that will take your game to the next level. We'll see you next time. Thank you for telling a friend about the show. Thanks for listening. Thanks for giving a little like, a little comment, a little share to my content on LinkedIn. I've got a lot of funny videos coming. They're also stored up on YouTube. Check out the other shows, Sales Questions, Brutally Honest Answers, the Sales Leadership Show, and the B2B Revenue.